All right, before we get into it, I just want to quickly give a bit of a disclaimer. If we talk about anything that is an upcoming Atlassian product release, just keep in mind that that's just being shared for informational purposes. That being said, the vast majority of what we're going to be talking about in the next 45 minutes are things that are possible today. But just for the Q&A, keep that in mind. And also just watch out if you're in the front row, just for all the pyrotechnics at one point, there's going to be a whole bunch of fireworks. Don't worry, just be ready for it. Excellent, so thanks for coming today. This is how 24-hour fitness switched to Jira Service Management for healthier and happier teamwork. I see someone's taking photos, so I'll give you a moment before I jump to the next slide. Okay, just to be a good citizen. Okay, so who are we? Well, I'm Jahan, I'm a product manager on Jira Service Management Cloud. I've been working at Atlassian for the last 3.5 or so years, and my job has always been to make life easier for Jira admins. Put your hand up if you're a Jira admin. All right, my people, that's where we're at. Nice. All right, Kevin.
Thank you. My name is Kevin. I'm an independent Jira consultant working through FMX Solutions. I've been doing IT service management and enterprise service management projects for about 20 years. Love the space. I love what we do. We make people's lives easier, right? So happy to meet with you all today and tell you our story about what we did with 24-hour fitness.
All right. My name is James Gambrell. I'm a senior manager at 24-hour fitness in the applications engineering team. And it sounds like I'm getting a little bit of echo there. One of the things that I think is really important when you're looking at the customers that we have, I'm just really stoked that this entire room is Jira admins, right? So if you're not a Jira admin, the door is that way. Just kidding. You know if you're a Jira admin that technology teams are probably the hardest customer you'll ever have. And as an engineer, one of the things that we know is how to embrace the suck. So turn it over to Rick.
Thanks. I'm Rick. I'm a principal engineer working with James at 24-hour Fitness. I do a lot of orchestration work, and I've been doing ITSM for about 20 years on multiple platforms. And it was really exciting for me to move to JSM because I'm having a lot of fun with it, and I haven't even explored everything yet.
Very cool. All right, well, we have an action-packed agenda for you, so let me walk you through it. I'm going to kick things off with how any team can set up Jira Service Management with ease, and why every department in your business should be thinking about this. After that, I'm going to hand over to Kevin, who's going to dive deep into the world of assets and show you how they change the game in Jira Service Management. After that, it's going to be a workout with Rick and James from 24-hour Fitness, and they're going to walk you through how they empowered teams through service ownership and how assets made the transformation possible. Awesome. At the end, we'll obviously have some time for Q&A, and we're excited about that. All right, so kicking things off, I want to start off with something that you already know. So this is not new news, but bear with me. The world has changed, like dodoy. But just to level set, we used to work in offices with our teammates all around us, and in that environment, you could just look to the person to your left or to your right for help. And if that failed, you could go for a short walk to the folks in IT, HR, finance, facilities, legal, whichever team it was, you could find help. These days, the world is different. We're increasingly working in distributed teams or in distributed companies. We're increasingly working in hybrid or fully remote roles, and we might just be hot desking. And all that means it's harder to know where to reliably find help. And if you couple that with the ridiculous amount of change we're seeing, I'm sure you folks saw that in the keynote, going from the world of, the world where the internet was new to the age of cloud computing and now moving increasingly into the area of generative AI, well, the world has changed. And in this new world, it's not just IT and customer support teams that need to be thinking about service management, but rather every department in your business. We call this enterprise service management, and all you Jira admins are very familiar with the term, but just to make sure everyone knows, it's service management beyond IT and customer support. And we've all seen these. I'm pretty sure everyone in this room will have to ask finance to approve some expenses sometime this week, next week, or if you're off the ball like me, probably the week after that. Most of us have had to ask teams to do something like create dashboards, like you might ask an analytics team for monthly reporting. I hope everyone here has asked for leave at some point in their lives, otherwise I'm very worried about you and you should probably leave and go on holiday right away. Or all of the other dozens, if not hundreds of use cases that make up enterprise service management. And what we've seen at Atlassian is a lot of these teams are just managing these requests in an ad hoc fashion, and that can work for a while, but it typically doesn't scale. And at that point, people find that the inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and lack of transparency incurs a business cost. And at that point, they start looking into service management tools and processes. And it kind of makes sense. I mean, like imagine onboarding without service management. You arrive on your first day and you don't have a laptop, you don't have access to systems, you don't even have an email address because no one told IT on time, and you're outside in the cold because you don't have an access pass because Fred from facilities was away on Friday and no one could find him on his lunch break. Obviously, this is probably the most dramatic enterprise service management use case, but if you zoom up to the level of the whole organization, every single one of these use cases does carry a cost if not handled effectively. And for that reason, we are seeing that 68% of companies surveyed in a survey in 2021 did say that they had an enterprise service management strategy, and that the larger companies were more likely to turn this into some kind of reality. So it's something that's happening. It doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what Atlassian says, this is just something we're going to see more and more. So the question really is, why use JSM beyond IT? And I'm going to give you 3 reasons, although because I'm preaching to the choir here with all the Jira admins, I'm sure you could give me a few more. But just to level set, you can first of all leverage what IT has set up, both in terms of a place to find help, the help center, as well as the configuration, whether that's custom fields, workflows, SLAs, calendars, assets, automations, etc. Also, for all that incremental work you have to do, all the additional work, we do have templates and AI to make it easy, and I'm going to walk you through some cool things that have been released in the last couple of years. And then last of all, team leads can own their own service desk, and this is going to be a theme for this presentation. A lot of you folks, all you Jira admins, I'm not telling you to create, deploy, and maintain service desks for every team in your company. That would be an incredibly sad time for you. And no, what I'm suggesting is that you can empower people to own their own service desks, whether it is through a team-managed project that they manage themselves or a company-managed project that you set them up as project admins for. So let's get into templates and AI in Jira Service Management, because there's been a lot that's happened in the last couple of years. And if you haven't paid close attention to all the keynotes and all the releases, you may have missed it. So I want to start off with request types. With request types, obviously these are foundational to your service desk, and we now have the ability to create them from templates on demand. So we have 57 request type templates across every team in your business. You can click on them and you can preview them. And if they meet your needs right off the bat, just use them, all good. Or if they take you 50, 60, 70, 80% of the way there, well then you can just create one, tweak it, and you're good to go. But if that doesn't suit your needs, we do have forms. We have 217 form templates. These are great if you have a more niche use case. We have such breadth here. These meet those kind of long tail use cases. We also find that they're a really, really good solution if you need to capture lots of information from your end users without creating a whole heap of custom fields. We all know that custom field bloat is real. And then thirdly, they're great if you need advanced functionality like conditional sections, etc. So forms, 10 out of 10, I highly recommend them. And then workflows, we have 36 workflow templates. Once again, all of these can be created on demand as you need them. We have them for every department in your business, and you can create them as is and use them, or you can create one, have a bit of a play with it, tweak it until it meets your needs. It depends on really what works best for your business. But alternatively, sometimes we're finding that templates just aren't enough. If your need is a little bit too bespoke, we can't create templates for everything, obviously. That would require us to create thousands or millions of templates. So instead we have AI. So with request types, you can create request types with AI. All you have to do is just say what you need in human language. By the way, superannuation is 401k. I'm an Australian, I can't help it. And it will create you your request type. And that's the request type name and description. What about the custom fields? Well, all you have to do is click on the Suggest Fields button, and we will recommend custom fields from your instance that we think you should add. And you can just click and add it. Or custom fields at the bottom that we think you should create. And you'll notice here that you're still very much in the driver's seat. The idea is not that AI just magically does everything for you and creates a whole heap of mess that you're able to clean up. We don't want that kind of AI. We want the AI that just gives you a few suggestions that saves you some time. Who here has seen Suggest Fields? Hands up. Okay. Well then, for all you folks out there who haven't seen it, please have a play. And so feel free to come catch me at the JSM stand. I'll very happily walk you through it. But we have this pattern now, which is we have templates for the common use cases, and then we have AI for that long tail. I'll give you a few examples. You probably saw from Mike's keynote that yes, we have not just automation templates, but now we have the ability to create automation rules with AI. Hands up if you've played with that. Okay, it's available in production right now. So if you haven't played with it, and if you don't have access, come to our booth very happy to walk you through it. But it's not just that. We have the virtual agent. The virtual agent works with intents. What's an intent? An intent is how we connect the problem that your end user has to the solution. It's basically how we segment different use cases. We have 54 intent templates that work right off the bat, but we are aware that every business is unique. And so we have the ability to actually create intent templates on demand using AI. We'll look at your data and we'll come suggest you some intents. And it's pretty cool. I had a lot of fun with this. I created some data based on The Simpsons, and you can see that you've got Flanders Fundraiser coming in as a recommended intent. So it does work no matter how bespoke the use case is. We have Atlassian Analytics. We have 34 chart templates, which allow you to make pretty much any chart you can possibly imagine on our data lake. But alternatively, and Mike showed you this today, you can simply enter what you want in human language, and we'll create some SQL for you. And then in a couple of clicks, you've got a chart. I'm a former data scientist. This stuff just breaks my brain. It's pretty amazing, so definitely have a play. And what about assets? Well, we're about to go deep into assets for the rest of this talk. So put your hands up if you use assets. All right, all right. For all you folks who didn't put your hands up, my call to action today is that you create one of these asset templates just to get a bit of a feel, because we're going to be going really deep and seeing what assets can do and what makes it so special. And if you're worried about what the starting point should be, this is definitely the place to start. But what's the fuss? What's so special about assets? Why does it matter so much? Well, assets helps you connect the dots from everything from people to hardware to buildings to really anything. For example, let's just say you set up assets and this person here, Frank, creates a ticket. With assets, JSM knows that Frank is a marketing manager who started 3 years ago, who's overdue for his security training. JSM also knows that his boss is Sarah Gladwell, the head of marketing. It also knows that his chair was replaced 3 weeks ago by the friendly folks in facilities. And it knows that his laptop needs to be replaced next week. And you can also see his colleagues and exactly how their work relates to him. So what you really get with all of this is connection and context. And when you zoom up to the level of your total organization, what assets really gives you is a connective tissue of your entire business, which I think is pretty cool. And it enables some pretty nifty use cases. And I'm going to pass over now to Kevin to walk us through that.
Thank you. So I want to talk to you first about how assets can really change the game for you in your JSM implementations. So I got started with assets myself a little over 4 years ago, back when it was called Insight, which was acquired by Atlassian before it became Assets. And I found myself kind of locked in a box. I was thinking about it all wrong from the beginning. I saw it as a way to do asset and configuration management from an IT lens. That's how I looked at it, was I need a CMDB, I need a place to store assets. This is what I'm going to use it for, and that's all I thought about it as. But as I started talking to other people that were using the tool, I talked to a few former Mindville employees that actually, where it came from, Colin Body here being one of them, he kind of opened my eyes to what it really could do. It unblocked a lot of use cases I struggled with when I moved from another tool to the Atlassian platform. So don't be thinking of it just as a place to store your assets. It's much more than that, and I hope today, when we're done, you'll see that you can use it for a lot of other great use cases. So assets really is a database of anything and everything. So it is, Jehan was talking about, it's not just IT assets, it's your people, it's the things these people have. It can be lots of things describing these things. In fact, at FMX Solutions, we use assets as the keystone that holds all of JSM together. Our request types, the forms look back to assets, our workflows leverage the assets data, and our automations very heavily use assets to help hypercharge JSM implementations. So assets, not just a database of IT things, it's a database of anything and everything. So kind of want to talk to you about ESM assets in the wild. These are things that I've actually seen. So last time I was on stage a couple years ago, I was talking art of the possible back when I was at Atlassian. Being in the field a couple years now, I'm actually seeing how we're implementing these things and coming up with new ways to leverage assets for some great use cases that are ESM focused, not just ITSM focused. So the first department I want to talk about is human resources. This is where we usually see companies go first in the ESM journey. There's some common things you're going to find in the ESM for assets is going to be, let's get a better picture of our people. So people assets, right? A lot of customers I start working with say, we'll just pull that from AD. I'm like, Sounds great, but what are you going to get there? You're going to get an email address, you're going to get their user login ID, first name, last name. I don't trust anything else, right? A lot of free text fields in AD, right? I use automations to route work based on locations. Can I trust AD? Assets gives me a way to kind of federate data into one place, and having a golden record for a person. I can look to AD for basic things, but I can also ingest information from your HRMS system. We use Workday with our customers and bring that data in, ADP. We can bring in lots of external data to that record to make it a true picture of who your people actually are. It's a very common use case that we see every day. The next one is departments, teams, and groups. Sounds basic, but a lot of complaints I hear from Jira admins that have used other tools is that, gosh, I hate just assigning to a person. I want to assign to an assignment team. We use assets for that. We actually have all this pre-built in our templates to be able to have the team I'm on and have queues built for those teams so it all works simply. It just works out of the box. So we leverage assets to store this information about the people, not just about me as a user, but me as a worker on the projects within JSM. Other cool things like my ID cards that I'm not wearing right now. Oops, I was going to show you my card. And also skills and training. All these things can be captured. In fact, John's use case about the person needing security training, we do that through assets. We can actually store that information, have automation rules on a schedule, send a reminder to someone and say, hey, these 30 people have not completed this yet. So it's a friendly way to kind of remind them to get involved and take that training course. So HR being one of the first ones we work with very closely. The second team we see a lot of is facilities, and they work very similar to how IT works, right? Mission critical things. One of the first things we do is we're going to grab your location structure, right? Assets is great for tracking things like buildings, rooms, floors, cubicles. When I first started with it, it was a blank slate, but thanks to your team, we now have templates that have this pre-built we can roll out. So storing this information is great because I'm going to use this potentially for auto routing. I can have different routing for automations done based on the information I find for your people. So I send the right tech to the right place versus the wrong tech to the wrong place. So having this information in assets is key for me to be able to do that. My favorite thing is the critical infrastructure component here. So a lot of people in IT talk about preventative maintenance, but facilities, that's a lot of what they do is PM work. You got little things like fire extinguishers they're tracking. Well, those things expire every so often, so they have to constantly go out and know when to replace those. That's a great use case here. Components like HVAC or HVAC, being able to know not just where it's at, but when was the last time it was serviced, and having automation schedule service every 90 to 120 days. So these are very common use cases we work with at FMX to make sure that our customers are taking advantage of assets to drive JSM forward. Lastly is finance. So they're really starting to come in and realize what they can be doing with JSM. Think of it like a finance service desk. Your companies are probably working with suppliers, with partners, with other vendors. How do you onboard those? We don't think about that, right? We're just doing our jobs, but it's people's job to do this. And I can tell you, having gone through that myself, there's a lot that goes on behind it. There's request types that are built, there's workflow, and there's automation. So this technology lends itself to be able to doing that very simply and very easily. So highly encourage you to be thinking about these use cases as you're going through your own JSM implementation with your business teams. Now, I want to talk about how assets kind of brings everything together, and I call it an FMX style. So I talked about this being the cornerstone or keystone for what we do with JSM, and it really is. Just about every component of JSM that you're probably working with today, we have some way or form that it looks back to assets for data. Our request types typically are going to be data-driven from assets. You're going to have custom fields that are asset lookups, that when I put in a request for a new laptop, I'm only shown laptops I'm entitled to see, right? I can do that because the data is stored in assets. So these forms truly are dynamic. When it comes to workflow, I've got a great customer doing an HR onboarding workflow where you've got full-time employees, you've got part-time employees, and you've got contractor employees, right? What's three workflows? It's not. It's one workflow that the assets is going to help guide through the path through automation. Again, able to do that because assets is storing that data for me. You're going to hear today from these guys at 24 Hour Fitness, Rick and James, about lookup tables and assets. Back when I implemented tools like BMC Remedy and ServiceNow, I could extend the schema and be able to do a lot of interesting things I couldn't do in JSM in the cloud. With assets I can. I'm building my own lookup tables to do cool things like delegated approvals that Rick's going to show you later on today. Without buying a marketplace app, we can do it all native in JSM with assets. And then finally, the automation piece. Again, automation for us, almost every rule we write, looking at my team over here, in some way or form is probably touching assets for some of the data we leverage for that. So it's a great way for us to help hypercharge your automations. That's a lot of talking about it, but I kind of want to show you some of it, right? So I'm going to take you through a quick demo, recorded demo of a HR onboarding use case here. And looking at the screen, we can kind of see these aren't IT records, it's people records, right? And that happens to be me. Shout out to my dog Waffles there, who's in that photo. But here you're seeing not just stale AD data, it's going to be normalized data. We're federating this from a couple different sources, AD and HRMS, I think Workday is what we have, and it's bringing it all into one place. Now the status there of onboarding we just passed, that's going to be critical for something I show you in a few minutes here, but just notice how you've got a combination of free text fields, normalized fields. It's everything about Kevin Patterson, including my entitlements and the things that I'm allowed to actually get as an employee here. So all this is going to be stored in assets that I'm now going to use when I interact with a request type. So if we go down here and set up a new employee, instead of going through and typing in just a first name and last name, and I might mistype something, I'm going to do a lookup from assets to find the right employee to onboard. Now, it's smart enough with our filters to only show people in an onboarding status. So I'm not going to show all 5,000 employees. I'm only showing folks that are in that onboarding status. Going through, I can go typical stuff like when's this person going to start. I can have automations that flag and say, hey, this is going to be pretty quick. We should probably escalate this. And then I can show you here the supported models I'm able to choose from, again, based on that asset record in my department. So really, this does allow you to have a hypercharged form. You can build one form that changes based on who is requesting it. You see different things in these values, and it really does make it easier on the requester. So in just a moment, we'll go ahead and hit send here, and this is going to go into be processed by our agent team. Now, of course, being admins, you've seen this before. You get the digest of what Kevin just asked for. So I always know that I can go back here and see all the great things that I asked for and be able to see that front and center. But next, what I want to show you is the agent view. They're going to get a lot more context here. It's not just these, Kevin's onboarding. They're going to see Kevin, and these drop-downs can expand and show more information about these components as well. You can see the laptop that Kevin requested. You can see all those details. And automation is going to do things like, oh, Kevin needs a security badge. Go to facilities and request that. And this is all closed loop, guys. It's all going to be done within JSM driven by assets. So again, that is the power of bringing all these things together. It really can hypercharge those automations. So a couple of things I want you to keep in mind as we go through our session today is there's 3 key ways assets is going to change service delivery. More intelligent forms, those custom fields and those forms driven by assets. More intelligent, less forms, less for you as admins to manage. Why build 1,000 forms when 50 you'll do it, right? So it can really help you improve your game for your forms. Second is those automation rules. Our delegated approvals Rick's going to show you is 100% possible because the automation rules are looking into assets to be able to accomplish what we do for delegated approvers. And that model works for a lot of use cases like that. So really think about how you can leverage data as lookup tables and assets to be able to drive your automations. And then my favorite, agent plus context is awareness. I can get more empathy and support people better if I know more about what's going on. Assets is going to give me that. I'm going to understand not just who the people are, what they need. I'll have at my fingertips the ability to drill in and see more information. So with that, my pleasure to introduce Rick and James at 24 Hour Fitness. I think, James, you're going to go first. So take it away, good sir.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, well, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, John, and thank you to the Atlassian team that helped put this together. Thank you all for coming in today. Really appreciate that. Want to share a story with you. So start out with 24 Hour Fitness. We are the original Team 24. Just wanted to let you know that. That's important to understand. We are based on teamwork. We are a fitness company. We've been in the fitness business for about 40 years, and we've seen a lot of things change in those 40 years, that's for sure. I wanted to, though, to move on more quickly to what we did in order to change our game, and that is empowering teams through service ownership, right? Because we can't do this alone, and you may have heard that theme throughout this conference, and it is repeating and again in real life, not just here at Team 24. So how many of you have actually looked at the mountain that is an ESM implementation and said, that's not something I'm going to do. There's no way I can climb that mountain. It's too big. It's an Everest, if you will. Well, it is achievable, and that's one of the things I hope you leave here today with, is that you can actually get this done, even with a minimum of staff and just barely squeaking by. So, all right, so what would you think about 24 Hour Fitness? Would you think we're a software company? Okay. No? No, we're not, really. We're not at all. But our member experience is based on software. Matter of fact, if you want to get into our club, you're going to run into software. And we actually have a large department inside our organization dedicated to building and delivering software on a regular basis. So we are, in part, a software company. So let's talk a little bit about the journey that we went on. So let's kind of back up a little bit and go back in time to 2015 when we had some IT guys go, let's throw in Jira and Confluence server on a VM somewhere and see if it works. So, and that's how I became a Jira admin, by the way. Because at some point, those developers were like, no, not touching that, give it to the IT guys. So we got it, we started running it, and that's what started our journey. So back in 2015. But then 2017 came around, and this fellow that I would love to chat with someday, because he inspired me, Scott Farquhar, he said, the days of the lone genius are dead, and that is true. He was actually citing a study that said more Nobel Prizes are awarded to teams than are awarded to individual lone geniuses. So if you think you're a lone genius, I've got bad news for you. But if you think as a genius that you can belong to an amazing team, I've got good news for you. So we started down that path, right? 2017, we went to Atlassian Summit, and I'll bet you didn't realize that, but Atlassian used to call it the Summit instead of the team, right? So they've changed and they've moved along because they've realized what everyone else is realizing this day, in this age, even here at 24 Hour Fitness. The teamwork that you need is endemic to your success. You need more than just 2 people, more than 3 people, more than 4 people. You got to reach out. You got to matrix into your organizations to make things work. And that's what we did. Well, 2020 came along, and well, I don't know. You all have been around, so you know what happened in 2020. It's literally the blip, like what happened over the last 5 years. But we saw this as a golden opportunity, right? This is an inflection where change can happen. So we only had a team of 2 people. And we're like, hey, we've got this great chance to change the way 24 Hour Fitness actually manages its work, to make work visible and move from a legacy, old, decrepit application to something new, more modern, that could actually drive things forward for us. So that's what we did. We said no transformation. With transformation with no budget and a team of 2, sounds crazy, right? Well, I think that's the difference between having a vision and having visions, right? We had a vision. We knew where we wanted to go. We were in an established place. We had a legacy application that had been with us for 25 years. Well, silos of services, inefficient handoffs, you've been there. You know what it's like, and we wanted to get out of that. So where we're going, or where we are today, we have dev and ops working together. We have more team members joining in JSM. We're onboarding HR next week. So we have HR coming on board. So it is no longer an IT solution. It is, at 24 Hour Fitness, turning into an enterprise service management solution. And that's what's really crazy. It's like, I'm not here to actually drive, the things that make users use the application. I just want them to have a good experience, to actually enjoy their work day in, day out. And that's the goal. Visible work is the key result, right? We see now the things that are happening day to day across teams, and the collaboration is amazing. So I know it's an overused word, but collaboration makes the difference. When your teams talk to each other, when they're connected, they're more effective. All right, so moving on, here's what we did. So from BMC Remedy, yes, I know, sorry, to Jira Service Management. So no budget. Really, I didn't have any money. They said, no, you can't have any money. So how do I do it without any money? Well, you get creative, right? If you would like to talk to me later, I can talk to you about amortization and depreciation tables and how to talk to accounting and make things work. Kind of fun. But we ended up saving 37% of our overall budget per year on JSM by switching out and taking multiple applications and collapsing it down to 1. A team of 2? Well, not really. I mean, honestly, we partnered with experts. So we looked out and we said, hey, who else can help us? We asked, we found a great team to help us out. Then on top of that, we began to empower our Jira admins, our new Jira admins, as owners, right? We're not gonna do it all ourselves. We can't. We have to train them a little bit. We had to bring them up, even though they were not technical, they're not engineers, they don't know how to do these things, but we have to be patient with them, slowly teaching them. In order to do that, we become more than a team of two. We become a team of many, and that is a game changer. No more control tower, right? You're not the Jira admin. You are multiple Jira admins talking together, building a community of team members working together to solve these weird and bizarre service management problems. We went from that control tower to decentralized administration, right? We're working with our fellow Jira admins. It was just the neatest thing to see some team members actually creating fields. Like, whoa, what? Okay, that's cool, but no field proliferation, right? We don't want that. All right, moving on. The concept of users, we don't think of you as users anymore. What we think of you as owners. You own this. It's yours, not ours. We're running it for you. We're like the management team. But it's your tool. You get to do it your way. And that's one of the most amazing things about JSM. Silos, they were there. They're gone now. We have team members talking to each other. One of the coolest things, HR's onboarding. We actually had a problem with HR data. We're like, if they were on board right now, we could file a ticket with them and they could get it solved for us. And we could actually track it instead of sending it in an email. Ugh. All right, and the last is CMDB. And as Kevin so adroitly put it, it's that mindset of assets, right? Is it just the physical device or is it just about everything? Well, an asset really is just about everything. So we think of assets as everything, not just physical devices. And to talk a little bit more about assets and what we did, I'm going to turn it over to Rick.
Thank you, James. So I'm sort of the technical half of the Rick James duo. So I feel there was a missed opportunity for some kind of meme in there for Rick James. But anyway, so we determined when we were going to migrate to JSM Cloud that the only way we could possibly be successful was to leverage assets. We had use cases that we just could not do without assets. So employment data we've talked about already in the larger ESM sense. So we not only provide agents context in their tickets, like what is the user's job title, what department are they in, who's their manager. The agent can also see what's their ticket history. They've raised 3 tickets this month for the same laptop. That's important to me as an agent. I should know that instead of just coming in cold. Second use case for us was hardware devices. That's kind of your classic CMDB plan for assets. But for us, we actually run our own warehouse where we ship out replacement computer systems to our gyms. So we wanted the agents to be able to just live in their service project. They can process their ship requests. They never have to go into the assets UI at all. We use the combination of automations with assets. So the agents live in the project, and the automation rules take care of updating the asset records for those hardware devices. So we now have visibility to where is that device located, what status is it, to whom is it assigned. That goes back to context for the agent. They know exactly what laptop belongs to me when I raise a ticket. They don't have to guess, or they don't have to ask me, what's your machine name? And I say, I don't know how to find that. I can't get to it. It's all right there in the system. And lastly is the lookup table concept that Kevin mentioned also, that we were doing it in Remedy, but it's actually a lot stronger for us in JSM. So we have the fairly new feature in automation rules was lookup tables that you can add within your automation rule. Those are great. It was a huge win. However, for something like I need to access thousands of employees or hundreds of computer systems, that's not scalable inside the rule. So the answer, assets. My automation rule can now say, oh, let me go find what devices belong to this user. Let me see which computer systems are in stock at the warehouse. So my warehouse agent doesn't have to kind of scramble around and figure out which laptop can I ship. He just clicks the button and sees a list of what's in stock. So John and Kevin both mentioned our delegated approvers. That was one of our use cases where we could not succeed without assets. So Kevin brought a really great pattern to us for how we could solve this with assets. So our use case, our IT change requests, we have a dynamic approver field that is set by automation rules based on various issue fields. So not every change request is going to have the same approvers. Another requirement is if I'm an approver and I'm going to be on vacation in a couple weeks, James is going to have to approve for me. I'm not going to get out my phone and approve change requests while I'm on vacation. So I need to be able to schedule ahead and say, I'm going to be out of town for a week, send my approvals to James. Or something came up and I have got to get out of the office now, I can immediately set James to approve for me. So the solution is assets plus automation. That's probably the biggest takeaway I have for everybody. Assets, don't think of it as kind of this CMDB over here. You can really supercharge your automation rules by combining it with assets. And the delegated approver concept for us was important because it reduces friction where as an approver, I can just go into JSM and raise a request and set my delegate, and it's very simple, which we'll see in a moment here. So how do I do that? I would need to set a delegate. I go to our IT service desk service project, which is our standard first point of contact for anybody for technical issues. I can raise a delegate request. We have 4 different request types. So you can see here, it already knows that I'm raising the ticket on behalf of myself. All I have to do is find James in my delegate approvals to assets field, which is doing a lookup of the people data, and tell it when I'm going on vacation and when I'm returning. That's it. I submit my request, and I don't think about it ever again. So the second piece is our lookup table and assets. So this is our plan delegation object type, and you can see here that since I'm at the conference, I currently have a delegate approver. Unfortunately, I made a bad choice because my delegate is sitting right over here. But I'm also going to be out of the office next week, so I have a pending future scheduled delegation for next week, and I was also out of town back in October, so my third record here is past history, so we keep the history in here. So this is the lookup table concept. And then kind of bouncing off a lot of what Kevin did is we have a very similar structure where we store data about the person. So we bring in, for us, it's ADP is our system where all the employment data is. So we ingest that with an automated process. But we also enhance it with additional attributes. So the approvers field on a change request uses my Atlassian account. So I have that as an attribute. I have a flag that tells the system that I'm an approver. I have an attribute that says this is my current delegate for approvals. And then the last piece is this large stable of automation rules. So this may look a little daunting, but when we break it down, there's a lot of discrete pieces, and it's actually not too bad. So how does all that fit together? Well, if I have an immediate delegation, I submit my request. I say, I need James to approve for me starting right now. It just sets that delegated approver attribute on my record, and I'm done. And then when I come back and I'm ready to resume, I submit a new request saying, OK, I'm back, revoke that delegated approver, and it'll just clear the attribute. Nice and simple. That's 2 of the 10 automation rules. For forward scheduling, I submit my request. It creates a plan delegation object that we saw. And then we've got a couple of scheduled automation rules that run every day first thing in the morning. And they look for, are there any future data delegations that need to take effect starting today? If that's true, I set the delegate in the person record, and we're good to go. And then also checking for expired delegations. So when my vacation's over, it'll just clear my delegate automatically. Or if for some reason I came back from vacation early, hopefully none of you ever do that, I can actually just revoke my delegate if I come back a day early for some reason. And the last piece is the automation rule that sets that dynamic approvers field. So when any of those related issue fields that determine who the approvers are change, the automation rule looks for everybody with that approver flag set in assets. It'll check if their delegate approver attribute is set. If it is, the delegate goes into the field as the approver. If it's not set, then the original person goes in. So it might look a little daunting, but it's not really. And the takeaway, I think, for everybody should be not, well, I could build delegated approvers this way. It's the pattern. How can I use assets as a lookup table, pair it with automation rules, and do some really interesting things? It's not just IT. You can extend it to any business team. We actually, in fact, help with automating our onboarding tickets. So another one of the FMX consultants helped us build a process where we can automatically, when we see a new hire come in, it'll generate a ticket, and the service desk agent can look at it's an onboarding ticket, and they can determine what additional tickets they need to assign out to teams. For example, they don't own creating accounts in other systems. They don't have permissions for that. So they can just pick, oh, this needs to be a billing system account. And the lookup into assets will figure out what team gets it, what details to put in, and shoot off the ticket, and it's only a couple clicks. So with that, I will hand back to John for a wrap-up.
Thank you. Awesome. So just to quickly wrap up, I think we've hopefully shown to you that every department in your business should be thinking about service management. This is something that's happening across the board. And hopefully we've shown you how we've got some AI and templates to really get you set up faster. Because obviously, it's all well and good to have a powerful tool, but if it takes forever to set up, that's defeating the purpose. But I think AI and templates does make it easy. And then last of all, and this is the key message, assets does make it exceptional. The things that you can do with assets plus automation together, the number of use cases I've seen for onboarding and offboarding, or for delegating approvers, change management, incident management, I mean, you can use this. I mean, the sky really is the limit. So to all you folks who are new to assets, I highly recommend you create one of those schema templates. And for those of you who are not new to assets, I highly recommend you take some of these more advanced ideas and see if you can implement them, and see if you can maybe get back to us with some of the things you've done, and you can maybe show off. That's the gauntlet I'm throwing out there. Anyway, big thanks to Kevin and Rick James. And now open for any questions. Yes, please.
I have a question for Rick James. From BMC Remedy to JSM, I assume that you already had a relatively mature ITIL shop, just knowing BMC as well as I do. How did that translate when you moved into JSM? Was there a knowledge curve for IT?
You want to take that one?
Not really. It was pretty seamless. In fact,
Real quick, for everyone, was there a knowledge curve in transitioning from BMC Remedy to JSM? Go for it.
Technically, yes. Obviously, the technical implementations are different, and that's a lot of the reason we engaged at FMX to help us, because we knew Remedy very, very well. We'd both been using it for 20 years, but we didn't know like the intricacies and the little gotchas about the way things work in JSM, so we got a lot of guidance from the FMX team on that. As far as the ITIL side of things, ITIL is ITIL, right? It's very similar. I found that JSM is a lot more flexible in letting us do what we want, and differently in different service projects. Different teams can configure it differently. That was a big advantage for us versus Remedy is kind of like, this is an incident. This is how you do it no matter what your team is.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we emphasized as well in the transition, the transformation, was not recreating Remedy, right? We had ideas that we could change the way we did, and they were subtle changes, like in our change management process. We added a new, faster lane that we couldn't do with Remedy. So all kinds of great opportunities, especially when you tie things like assets and automation together inside of JSM.
We'll go to you afterwards, over here.
What data did you migrate from Remedy, and how was that done?
Well,
what data did you migrate from Remedy, and how did you go about doing it?
we didn't. Let's put it that way. We left it alone. We have the tech debt burden of decommissioning the system at some point, which means it'll stay around until we keep it, or until we figure out when we can decommission it. But we're not migrating that stuff, no.
Nice.
It was a good opportunity for us to kind of leave junk data behind. Like, for example, we track our hardware assets in our warehouse. Well, we knew there was some inaccurate data there, so the warehouse team just did a clean inventory of what was physically in the warehouse, and we brought that into JSM instead.
Yep.
And we can bring in if we have historical transactional data like incident history, we can bring that into our data warehouse instead.
So there's other tools out there that do something similar to this, right? ServiceNow being one of them. What made you guys decide on Atlassian versus any of the other?
So the question is, what made us decide on JSM versus other tools that are out there? And that's a solid question. Part of it was that we had already implemented Jira Server and Confluence Server back in 2015. So we had an ecosystem in place. And that ecosystem had grown so that our use case for it was our dev teams, and they were big users. In around 2018, we decided to try to use it in the ops and engineering sections of our department. That gave enough, forward progress, momentum, that actually enabled us to say, we don't have to choose we have a solution, we have a clear path to migration and a vision that will get us there. So we didn't do it the average kind of request for proposal process. We did it more along the lines of natural kind of organic evolution of where we were and where we wanted to be.
Another big reason is a real big win for our IT service desk manager was that now we have incidents and change requests and dev user stories all in one tool set. When we had incidents and change management and Remedy and everything else in Jira,
They were not.
silos. Now, the service manager is very happy that he can demonstrate to dev that their deployment they did just generated 50 tickets for his team. So I think there's going to be a lot of eyes opening to impacts of,
Yes.
oh, I left a step out of my deploy plan.
Yeah. Up in the corner.
Oh, wait.
What's been the biggest challenge of getting non-technical teams like HR and finance to adopt JSM?
Getting non-technical teams to adopt JSM. Have you raised children? No. I don't mean to be pejorative, but I do want to say that you have to translate your technical terms, your concepts into what they can understand. And one of the things that I tried to do with our HR team is the concept of how you present your services. So the first concept was, what's your front door? How are they coming in to see you? Is it email? Are you going to make a portal? What are you going to do? And they stuck on that concept, front door, instead of thinking about portal and email integrations and security and all of those things. They were just thinking about it from a design perspective. So yes, you do have to, I hate to say that, but you have to take it down a notch and then translate it to things that they can understand.
If I could add to that too, I think empathy is your driver.
Yes.
What is your world like, right? And so, how are you benefiting from this? By just having to do more work, or oh, you're addressing my needs. If you address my needs, you make my life easier. Yes, right? I mean, how many people walk up to you every day and be like, "Hi, I'm Jerry. Nice to meet you. I'm going to make your world better," right? That just doesn't happen. But when it does, it's like, oh, what are you going to say? No?
Yeah.
Here, I'd like to give you less meetings today. I'd like to be able to help provide this so you can go home earlier. Like, okay, can I do something for you?
Yes, very much so.
Love that.
Yeah.
There was one hand up here. I'm mindful of time, so we probably should wrap up to that, but I saw someone who had their hand up before. Yes?
I was curious how you knew that you wanted to work with a solution partner and your process about in finding one and finding the right one.
That's a tricky thing. So solutions partner, what did we do to actually find a solutions partner, and what did we do to select the right one? Well, it's a unique situation for us. We're not probably an example. We're maybe the exception to the example, or the exception rather than the example. What we were doing was actually, trying to kind of sneaker net this thing in there and make it work. And in order to do that, we had to do a lot of the work ourselves. Remember, no budget. We had to figure out, solutions that would work within those constraints. And what we did is we realized we couldn't do it alone. And that was just the reality of the situation. So I had prior contacts working with various companies, reached out to quite a few of them, asked for, what they could do for us given the constraints. Most of them were like, no, we're not touching you. But the ones that did actually respond engaged, and empathy was an important part of that. And FMX was our chosen partner because they took the scope of what we were trying to do, understood it, and worked with us. They were flexible. And that was something that was really important to us. We didn't want people to do it for us. We needed experts to add fuel to the flame that was our transformation.